Our best performing email campaigns are those that reference multiple people in the company. For example, should I contact you or Bill in marketing? It's just a subtle enough thing that they know that you've researched the company, but it's not too automated. So those campaigns convert really, really well, but they can be really complicated to set up. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to set them up and go over the Clay integration with Outreach Magic and a little bit about how the Outreach Magic API works. So let's get into it. With the multi-contact campaigns, what you need is you need a list of companies that you want to reach out to, and you need to know who you want the primary contact to be and who you want the secondary contact to be. So in this example, I'm going to use this Venture X. It's just a random company I selected, but you'd have your companies there. And I would recommend that you train a virtual assistant to do this process because it is a little bit of work up front, but this is the best way I found how to do it. Maybe someone has a simpler way, but this is the way that I found the most simple way to do it. So you would go to their company page on LinkedIn, and we're going to look for the community manager and the CEO. So the community manager is going to be the secondary contact. So you would then find the community manager. So we'll open that up, and then you would find the CEO. So again, you could just search here for the CEO, and you would find the CEO, which is this guy right here. Once you have their information here, then you would go over to your Clay table, and you have a column here called LinkedIn profile. So what you would do is you would just copy their LinkedIn profile in right there, and then you would put in the primary contact right here, and you would have this run. So you'd have it do the enriched person, and then that would then add. So all you need to do is add the LinkedIn URL, and the rest of the information will be filled. So you would add that in there. It will then pre-fill all this information. We have the company domain, which is coming from the enriched person. And then we have a waterfall here. And with the waterfall, we actually have an integration with Outreach Magic as well, where it can actually search the Outreach Magic database to see if that contact already exists in your database before querying the other databases and costing you credits. So this is really cool. It will actually query Outreach Magic. So it's going to search Outreach Magic for that LinkedIn profile to see if that contact already exists in Outreach Magic. And if it does, then you're not going to have to pay for credits. So it's going to search from the LinkedIn profile to find that. So the way to set that up, you can just see quickly here. Under full configuration, we added a new HTTP here. And this just has the lookup endpoint for Outreach Magic. And we've got the name and the domain and the LinkedIn URL. All we really need for this to work is the LinkedIn URL. And then it'll be able to search your database and see if that contact already exists. And if it does exist, it will pull all of their information. So in this case, we've got all their information here, all of their history, but all we're syncing over is their particular email. So that's a little tip on the waterfall to save credits. And then here's where you need to actually reference the contact. So which one is the primary contact and which is the secondary contact? So the primary contact is going to be the person you're emailing. The secondary contact is going to be the person you're referencing. So you would email this primary contact and you would say, are you the right person to contact, or is this secondary contact? And you'd reference their name. You could even reference their job title and so forth. So you would set it up here. So this is done by the virtual assistant. They add all those contacts in there, what that looks like, and they will then enrich them, and then they'll get their emails. And then they want to send them to Outreach Magic. So this is where you're sending the attribute data to Outreach Magic. So the way that works here is you set up a post here. This is a special URL that you'll get inside of your portal, and you'll be able to send over all that data. So we have templates and stuff to make this easier for you, but basically you send over all the data, like the lead type, the email, the LinkedIn URL, their name, their job title, their summary, their location, the domain, the description, all of that information. And then that's going to sync over to the Outreach Magic platform, so it's saved in your database. So if you do a waterfall in the future, you don't have to pay again for the credits, as I mentioned earlier, as well as all the reports in Outreach Magic. It's going to make those look so beautiful and have all of those attributes inside the reports. So you would send it to Outreach Magic. So that's how that would work. And then once you've did that, you move over here to a new table. Now in this table, all you have to do is add the domain. You can either do the domain or the LinkedIn company URL, and you add that here, and then you're going to set up two different columns here. And this one is going to use the search endpoints. So this is another endpoint, Outreach Magic, the search endpoint, and you're going to have the domain name and then search for primary contact. So that's going to search your database to say anyone at this domain have the primary contact, and you're going to limit it to one record. And that's going to then search for this particular domain to see if there's any primary contacts. And it will pull a result just like what we sent over there. So all of that data, it's going to pull, as well as all the event history that we've had with that lead, if they've been contacted in the past and how they've been contacted. Maybe we commented on their LinkedIn post, maybe another person in your company commented on a LinkedIn post. All that information is going to be synced here when you're searching for that primary contact. And then you can also do the same for the secondary contact. All it's changed is the lead type is secondary contact. And you can run that, and it will again pull all of that information for that secondary contact. Looks like we can check here, let this run, and you can see what it actually looks like when it pulls the secondary contact. So it will pull all of their information so you can see what they particularly are. And then when you're setting up the campaign, what you will want to do is when you're writing the email, so you can use again an AI, for example, to write the email, you can say proofread this email, and you can say hi, and you can go first name, and then now, so you'll notice there's a first name in the primary contact, and then are you the right person to contact, or is, and then you can say first name again, but this time you're going to go to the secondary contact. So you're going to actually reference the secondary contact. So is the primary contact the right person, or is the secondary person the right contact? And that's basically how it is. So you would write your email template there. AI can write your template, and that's how it would reference both those people at the company for that. And again, you can do this at a big scale where you're having an assistant help you do this. So that's the basics on how you set up these multi-contact campaigns. They convert incredibly well. They are a bit of effort to set up, but again, if you have an assistant help you do the categorizing and send the outreach magic, then all you had to do is go in here and then run a query to pull that information, and then you can go take it from there. It's really not that much effort from that point. I also wanted to cover a couple other things about the Outreach Magic Clay integrations. So there's two main endpoints I'm going to talk about. One is the search endpoint, and that's where you can search for things like all contacts at a company domain, or all positive leads, or all negative leads. You can do searches like that. And so I did some examples here. You would go to Clay, and you can do this not only within Clay, you can do it within other tools as well. But to search for all the positives, for example, you would add a new HTTP call, and you would say you want to search for your profile name. This is the client. So in Outreach Magic, you have different profiles. So this would be your particular profile, and you'd have the sentiment. So this is going to be the positive sentiment, and you have your limit. So the limit is how many records you want to pull back. So we're just going to limit that to 40, and then you would run that query, and it will come back with all of the information. So these are all the last 40 positive leads that we've gotten, and it will have all of the information for those leads. The name, all of the event history. You can see what emails were sent, who sent the email, what platform sent the email, what server sent the email, what reseller sent the email. All that information is going to be pulled for that. So you can see all that here. And what we did is we set up send it to a table. So we set up this to table, which is a native feature in Clay where you can send it to a table, and we're sending all of those records to a table. So you can say, okay, we want to pull all the positive leads, and then we want to send them to the to positive table. So this is that table here. And this is where it gets really, really cool. So what you can do is, again, now you can see all those values are pulled to this table. We can then do a follow-up email. And I'm using the Gemini. I find this works pretty good for this. So you can see, I'm Spencer Mercury, founder of Outreach Magic. Write a follow-up email to person first name, person job title of company name. They express positive interest on, and this is the date that they last contacted them. And then say analyze the past event history and reference who he spoke to and what they talked about in the email, keeping it short and to the point. So this is the event history. So this is an array with the event history. So you can see that, as I showed you earlier, all of that history. So this is all the LinkedIn events, all the email events, all of that is going to be referenced when it writes the email. So you can see when it writes it, it actually will reference the date that they were last contacted, like a gist of what the message says, and that information from there. So again, you can write really personalized follow-up messages with the positive leads like that. So that's a cool example with that. With the negative ones, what you can do, you can just set the sentiment here to negative, and it will pull all of those. And this, again, typically it's used if you want to build a do not contact list or something like that. But again, you can make sure you don't contact the people that are negative. Another feature which is really cool is the list import feature. So with Outreach Magic, you upload your own list. So say you source a list from Apollo, or from whichever tool you used, you can then upload that list to Outreach Magic. And what that's going to do is it's going to search the existing database, and it's going to look for leads that already exist, and it's going to then append all that information. So maybe you sourced a brand new list, but some of those contacts maybe were emailed 6 months ago, and you didn't realize that they were when you sourced a new list. So when you do this, you upload the list, you take the name, and you search for it. It will then pull that list. I'm then sending it to this table here, the list import table. And on this table, now you can see that it pulled all that information. And some of these, this is how many emails were sent. You can see some of these had emails already sent. Even though it's a brand new list, some of these had been contacted in the past. And you can see some were even not interested. And so if you're not careful, you might end up contacting people that were not interested. And so this is a way that you can actually make sure when you get new lists that you're actually contacting people that have never been contacted before. You could even look and say, when were they last contacted? Like, if maybe it's okay that they were emailed in the past, but I want to know when they were last contacted. So you can look at the last touch date, for example, and you could add that as a column. And then you could sort by that and make sure, okay, I only want to contact people that were not contacted. It's been 6 months since I last contacted them. So that's a reference on the list import feature. The other thing I want to talk about just briefly is how you send data to Outreach Magic. So this is how you're getting data out of Outreach Magic with these two imports. The way you send data to Outreach Magic is in the portal. You can actually upload a CSV file, which is quite simple. You can upload your Apollo CSV file or whichever CSV file you might have, ICPs or these different tools that you're using. You can upload it directly there, or you can do the add attributes here. As I showed you earlier, this is actually sending it from. So when you enrich it in Clay, you can send all that enriched data back to Outreach Magic. So the way that works is you would add an endpoint here. This is the HTTP, and you do a post. And again, all of this is documented for you, so it's easy to understand. I know I'm going very quick right now. You can see that this is what you'll send all of that data that you got from the enrich. So when you enrich the lead, it gives you a lot of information. You send all that data to Outreach Magic right here. So you've got the person email, the name, their summary, the location, the domain, the company URL, all that information gets sent to Outreach Magic. And then again, when you do a waterfall in the future, it's going to use that. So you're not wasting credits, as well as it's going to make all those reports look really, really beautiful. So this is the basics of how Outreach Magic integrates with Clay. If you have any questions about this, you want me to go more in depth, just leave a comment, let me know. I'm happy to record more content for you. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.